I didn't apply. I clicked a banner for a temporary retention specialist at Ultra SAT at 2 a.m. after a panic attack about rent and woke up to an automated congratulations email. They didn't even interview me. Show up, headset on, smile with your voice, and pretend the script is oxygen. The building used to be a furniture store. The windows were blacked out with vinyl so the glare wouldn't mess with monitors. It always smelled like dust baked by fluorescent lights. They gave us 2 pens, a flimsy spiral notebook, and a matte black headset that pinched the cartilage right behind my ear until a red crescent dug in and never healed. The bathroom stalls had motivational stickers. You control your attitude, not your call volume. Call center work is a waiting room where the doctor never arrives. If you've done it, you know. I'd start every shift with a vain prayer that the queue wouldn't be wall-to-wall and end every shift muttering curses at the algorithm that makes hope feel like a policy violation. You learn to measure your day in the caffeine arc, the first can of cold black coffee, the sugar crash, the jitter plateau, the apathy cliff. We sold satellite TV to people whose roofs couldn't handle a heavy bird landing. Our client did the usual, raise the price, reduce the channels, blame the weather, and then, like every client before, fumbled so badly that their contract with our company turned into a dog leash. And the moment they tugged, we were told to heal. Then Ultra SAT got bought. The news slug dropped into our Slack like a polished stone. Ultrasat welcomes acquisition by IFTV. The IFTV logo looked like a black square with a red smile cut into it. The memo was airy, exciting integration, brand synergy, new programming coming Friday. We Googled IFTV and found a lot of nothing. A sketchy press release about content verticals, a P.O. box in Nevada, a trademark filed by a holding company that didn't have a website. Everyone started making gallows jokes because it's the only language left when your hourly wage is a dare. We all knew what exciting integration meant. Pay cuts, surprise, temporary relocation, maybe letting the lease lapse, and telling us to take calls crammed between our own water heater and anxiety. And also the calls. We braced for the weekend's theme. Where did my channel go? The changes were slated for Friday, end of week. I stared at the calendar, felt the day coming like a bruise. We joked about pooling for a cake that said, welcome, new masters, and putting sparklers in it until the fire alarms pealed and bought us an evac. Friday started before the sun. I clocked in early to grab a cubicle with a chair that didn't groan like a haunted swing. I dialed ready. The system beeped like a microwave that wanted to devour me and immediately fell into a call. Older guy, screen stretched. Thought people were short and squashed. I started the dance. What input are you on? No, the other remote. You're going to see a button labeled format or aspect. I did the gentle voice, patient as a priest. I explained 4:3 versus 16:9, like I was translating a dialect of clouds. He apologized for not understanding. I apologized for existing. We said, thank you, like we were throwing darts into a softball. The call ended, and I allowed myself a sip of coffee that tasted like bandage glue. The next call dropped in my ear like a stone through a windshield. I said the script. Thank you for calling Ultra SAT. This is sobbing. A man trying to swallow his heartbeat. I can't see my TV. I pulled up the KB, the decision tree that fans out like a sad fern. Accessibility protocol. I'm sorry you're going through that. Can you tell me if the power light is on? Maybe we can. He cut me off with a strangled noise. I can't see anything. We have a page for visually impaired callers. Calm sentences. Ask if there's someone with them. Ask if they can safely move to another room. I slid into that mode like a glove. Is there anyone who can help you? A family member or a neighbor? His breath hitched. He started sobbing again, messy and wet. And then he said, no, they're gone. He took them from me. My eyes flicked to Slack. Everyone else's statuses were green. Some had little emojis, coffee cups, skulls. In the main channel, the managers were posting saccharine gifs about exciting changes. The trending channels list changed names as I watched, a silent cascade of updates. I felt something cold rise through my stomach. "Sir," I said, pen poised over the notebook. "Who took them? Did someone enter your home?" "The TV man you sent over," he said, like he was biting the inside of his cheek with every word. "He said he was here to update our cable box, but instead he took my family away." "Sir, please," I started, aiming for soothing, and he exploded. The bastard knocked me to the floor while another one ran at my wife, and he dug his thumbs into my eyes. I stopped breathing. Ink bled at the point of my pen like a tiny wound. "I'm sorry," I said very carefully. "Did you say one of our technicians stuck his thumbs in your eyes?" "Yes," he screamed, and my headset filled with the kind of sob that's a whine and a howl at the same time. While he held me down, I heard the other one dragging my wife away. I don't even know how long it's been. I had to feel around for just the shape of my phone, and when I asked Siri to call 911, it just kept calling your fucking company. I could hear the empty house around him, a refrigerator clicking on, the buzz of a light that wasn't turned on, distant traffic like rain. I wanted to hang up and call emergency services, but our phones only route internally. We can only transfer to other departments. The script is a cage with a smile painted on it. "Help me," he said, small now. "Please. There has to be someone you can put me through to that can at least get an ambulance out here." Slack pinged. A message from a supervisor I barely knew. If a caller mentions a technician in the home and a medical emergency, transfer to supervisor line. Do not remain on the line. I typed into the general channel. Caller claims tech attacked him, gouged eyes, wife missing. 10 other reps typed variations of the same thing. The answers came back like a chorus. Transfer to supervisor line. We do not have a supervisor line. That's a trick we use to punt angry callers to anything that will return to us like a boomerang. But the pings kept coming. "Get off the call. Get them to the supervisor. Move. I'm going to connect you to a supervisor," I said, hating myself, hating the way my voice went professional like a suit. "They can dispatch." His breath hit the mic. "Please don't leave me," he said, and something in his voice broke a bone inside my chest. But I pressed transfer because if I stayed, they'd write me up. The hold music wobbled like a cassette rotting in a hot car. The line clicked and died. That was the first not normal call. The second type showed up like rot under paint. People calling to complain about the new programming. "I'm not paying to watch people get hurt." An elderly woman hissed like I was standing right next to her earlobe. "Why did you replace my quilting channel with that should have killed him?" A dad in a cul-de-sac whispering while his children shrieked joylessly in the background. "My son went to bed screaming because of your monster network." A woman strained and tight. "The staring channel is all that's on during dinner. It's just someone looking. My husband won't turn it off. He says if he looks away, he'll miss something important. He keeps asking if I see it. I don't see it. He hasn't blinked in an hour." The names of the channels flickered across our internal programming grid like curses. The pain channel, the monster network, the staring channel. There were others, lists of numbers that weren't exactly channels, but slots, blank placeholders that felt like teeth. Some of the blurbs read like jokes carved by someone who hated you, who wants to be a pile of red goo. Extreme animal maulings. DIY crucifixion, viewer discretion advised. We were supposed to act like this was normal. Thank you for your feedback. We're rolling out programming changes to better serve our diverse audience. You can change your package. There's a phrase they tell us. Neutral tone neutralizes escalation. It's a lie. Neutral tone is a match you slowly rub until your thumb smells like sulfur. The third type of call, I still feel in my bones when I try to sleep. It has a rhythm. "Thank you for calling Ultra SAT. Please send a technician. Something is wrong with our TV." "Okay, calm down, ma'am. What's wrong with your TV?" "It's trying to eat me." "What?" "It's trying to eat me." At that exact moment, you always hear something in the background. Not the squeal of a pet, not a door, a drumming, a hollow bang, like fists against a door that's already bowed. Something bigger than a human. You'll hear the caller babble through her teeth, the phone muffled against her cheek as she tries to hold the door shut. It's coming through the vents. It keeps showing my kitchen, but the camera is inside my kitchen. It's repeating what I say, but 30 seconds later with my voice. And the bang turns into a split, and the call goes bad like milk. You call out, ma'am? Ma'am? 3 times because that's the rule they drilled into us while our hands shook holding plastic cups in training. No response. You hang up so you can lie in your notes about the disposition code. 10 hours of that. 10 hours of that. With the only reprieves being 2 15-minute breaks, lunch, and the 1 10-minute break you can steal if you hit a button fast enough after a call ends and before the next one hunts you. We weren't allowed to bring phones into the break room, so it was a room out of time, old magazines, hum of a freezer that used to keep ice cream upright until they stopped filling it. You sit there, fluorescent bored, counting ceiling tiles, pretending your brain isn't chewing your throat. The calls blurred together like injuries. A man who said his TV had started rearranging the channels, so his late wife's show was always on when he walked into the room, and the laugh track responded to him. A kid whispering that the Monster Network taught him a game you play with your reflection. A nurse calling from a nurse's station that had 10 TVs flickering with a program called Crosswalk Roulette. A church group asking if we had a parental control that could block a channel named the 13th Sermon, which was just a pulpit scene from above, and the congregation was the ceiling. Between calls, little weirdnesses. The whole music changed, so the fake saxophonist started squeaking like they were in a closet. The Ultra SAT logo on the desktop login flashed red when my eyes drifted. One of my coworkers, Tara, kept massaging her temples and muttering, "I can hear static in my teeth." I had a half second of dead air that sounded like someone inhaling behind me. But when I turned around, my cubicle wall was undisturbed and the little pinhole in the foam appeared darker, like a pupil tightening. By hour 6, I could feel words physically in my mouth like grit. We used to have a call of the day wall where they'd put up funny transcriptions of crazy customers. They took it down years ago because it made the clients nervous. Tonight would have filled it end to end with things that weren't jokes. Around 8 p.m., a shift supervisor wandered the floor, a woman with a bun so tight it looked surgical. She handed each of us a laminated one sheet. IFTV integration, night shift operations. A few small updates, she said, as casual as if she were reminding us to rinse our cups. Just keep these by your keyboards. Read them when you can. The title was bland, the body was not. They called it the rule book, as if that was cute. It had 5 bullet points with tiny checkboxes next to each. The font had that soft corporate roundness that makes everything look like a kid's toy. 3 of the notes sounded like nonsense. 2 were familiar. All of them were wrong in a way that only shows itself when your heart has learned a new way to beat. The rulebook/procedure drop. Rule 1. If a caller mentions the TV man, do not say the phrase back. Acknowledge with "I understand." Do not ask for a description. Do not ask for credentials. Rule 2. If a caller says they can't see, keep them on the line for at least 90 seconds, even if you must place them on hold. This is for their safety. Rule 3. When a caller describes staring, ask them what time it began. Do not volunteer the time. Rule 4. Never dial an external number from your workstation phone. Use internal transfers only. Compliance check. Rule 5. If the programming grid displays a channel that is all numerals, do not open it. Log display anomaly and continue. Rule 2 sounded like someone trying to comfort child. Safe. Deceptively safe. 90 seconds is a long time when a person is crying in your ear and telling you they can taste pennies. Rule 4 was compliance theater. Rules 1, 3, and 5 felt like instructions left by someone who had walked a longer hallway than me and come back knowing we wouldn't believe them. There was a post-it stuck to the laminated card, handwritten in a sharp hand, for QA use only. Below it, a code, 44-00 if. I peeled it off and stuck it to the top of my monitor. I didn't know why I did that. It looked like a plant tag in a graveyard. By hour 8, the building sounded different. The air vents breathed deep, then held. The fluorescent buzz slid low, wavered, and returned an octave down, like a voice waking up. If you rubbed your forearm, you could feel the hair on it lift and lay down like a field rippling. My headset ear cup felt warm. The rubber on the button marked brake had a tiny split in it I'd never noticed, and when I poked it with my nail, it flexed in a way that made me want to gag. The second sobbing man wasn't old. He sounded 40, maybe. He told me his wife had gone quiet in the living room. He told me the TV was controlled by a remote he didn't own. He told me he could smell chlorine, and they didn't have a pool. Somewhere to his left, a program said in a bright voice, "Bring a towel." I could hear the wet slap of footsteps on tile that wasn't in his house. I transferred him to the supervisor line. I hit the button and watched the light under it pulse red like a throat. Near the end of my shift, I decided to do what we all do when we've seen too much of the inside of a mouth: play the timing game. There's a trick. You make sure that as soon as a call ends, you throw yourself to break. If you land the jump right, you can surf the last 5 or 10 minutes into the end of your shift without getting pulled back into the current by another call. It's petty, and it's the only control you have. I got lucky. I helped an older man with an input problem. Those calls are a mercy, almost like teaching someone to tie their shoes. HDMI 1 to HDMI 2. He called me dear, like I was a waitress. I got him back to his baseball game, the old kind with real grass, and he said, "Bless you," and my throat pricked like I'd swallowed wool. The call ended. My fingers stabbed brake with the reflexive speed of someone who has learned where no one will ever hire a person who hesitates. I stood, my knees popping, and walked to the break room for the last time. They were all there. People who'd clocked out hours ago, people who'd left mid-shift for appointments, people I'd only ever seen in the back lot smoking and blowing it out slowly like they were practicing being ghosts. They were standing in a loose circle in the exact middle of the room, not sitting at the wobbly tables, not leaning on the vending machines. Standing, heads slightly tilted down like they were studying their shoes. No one spoke. No one turned when I walked in, the door hydraulic hissing like a tongue. I said out loud, because silence is a rumor you can kill if you're quick. "Hey, is there a meeting?" No one reacted. It was like my voice didn't have a body. I took 2 steps forward and the smell hit me, a pair of smells that combed through the room with their fingers. One was sulfur, lit and lit again until it had a rind, a match head crushed under a thumbnail. The other was sweet and wrong, the smell of meat that has been trusted too long and has begun to confess. "Hello." My throat tightened. I touched the shoulder of the nearest rep, a guy named Manny who always brought in honey-roasted peanuts and shared. He didn't flinch. He turned. I took an involuntary step back. His eyes were gone. Not blacked. Not milky. Gone. The sockets were tidy. If I hadn't known the human face, I would have thought that's how they came. On the far side of the circle, every person I could see had the same calm holes. Calm is the only word. Like this was a reasonable compromise. I looked down because my brain wanted to save me, and it failed. In the center of the circle, on the break room linoleum with old coffee stains and a skid mark from a chair that someone dragged when they were too tired to lift, there was a pile of human eyes. Not messy, arranged. They didn't gleam. They were dull, a heap of marbles that had belonged to a kid who stopped playing. I thought, stupidly, of the post-it note on my monitor, the code 44-00, the way I had pressed it into place. "What the fuck?" I said, and my voice bounced off the ceiling and came back pale. "What the fuck is wrong with all of you?" They didn't answer. They took each other's hands like children at field day. They began to whisper. The words slid around each other like tiny eels. The only thing I caught was the number 4. The smell doubled and cut a notch in my breath. I backed to the door and glanced up at the clock. Midnight. Not 11:59, not 12:01. 12 o'clock, the red digits steady and stupid. Sometimes you think reality is flexible until it snaps back and bruises your knuckles. Things blur here. I know the temperature rose because I felt my scalp dampen and then go cold as the sweat evaporated like fear I didn't need anymore. An orange light built in the center of the circle, low at first, like someone had placed a candle under a glass bowl, and then it swelled and tilted, so it looked like it was coming from inside the floor. The linoleum looked thin as paper. A silhouette lifted from the knot light, first a smudge, then the obvious shape of a torso. The hum in the vents turned into a voice you feel in your teeth. It said, bright as a morning announcement, "Hello, former Ultra SAT employees, and welcome to the start of your new career as an employee of Inferno TV. Now hold on tight, as you will have to relocate." The ground shuddered like a dog shaking off water, left, right, so fast my knees tried to learn a new trick. My skin authenticated heat without asking me. Something in me unhooked. I ran. I ran through the door hard enough to throw my shoulder against the jamb. I took the hallway in 3 strides, past the bulletin board with photos from the holiday party that looked like a wake. The exit sign above the double doors bleeded red. I hit the bar with both hands and spilled into the parking lot, where the night air tasted like a hose left in the sun. I could hear the building behind me, something inside it rearranging. My car was under a sodium vapor light that turned the paint the color of old mustard. My keys tipped down my palm like children. I jammed metal in a hole, heard the little chirp that has always sounded smug, and hauled the door, the seat belt, the ignition. My hand shook so badly I couldn't shift right away. I stared at them like hands you find under your pillow. In the rear view, I saw it happen. You're not supposed to have language for this. My grasp on it is like a hand on the back of fish. The building breathed out. The blacked-out windows bulged slightly, like cheeks puffing. The roof rolled like a muscle. The asphalt in the lot cracked between paint lines. And then the ground under the break room went slack, sagged, opened. Not like a hole, like a mouth remembering how to yawn. A smell rose, rot and fireworks. And underneath it the scorch of something clean, a heat that sterilizes and sterilizes until nothing living recognizes itself. Large, red fingers eased up out of the opening like a magician's trick in reverse. They were not human fingers. They were shaped like the idea of fingers that was taught to something that never had any. They wrapped around the cinder block rectangle of our workplace with a proprietary affection and squeezed. The building squealed. It sank, not fast, like a tub going down a drain when the stopper sticks. I watched the spot where the break room had been folded inward. Something that wasn't a laugh rippled over the parking lot and trembled in my glass. I pressed the accelerator and the car leaped. A rabbit. I did not look back again, not until the corner where you have to because of the stop sign, and then I cheated, I rolled it, I didn't let the tires stop at all. I went home like a rat through a house that's on fire. I parked crooked, dragged the door behind me, kicked at the mat until it bunched, turned the deadbolt so hard it sounded like teeth. I sat in the corner of my bedroom with my grandmother's Bible pressed to my chest because I didn't know what else to hold between me and the shape of what I had just let into my head. The pages smelled like dust and orange oil. My eyes adjusted to the thin street light glow coming through the blinds, and each slat of light made bars across my knees. I said my old confirmation verse out loud in my shirt, and then lost the thread and just breathed, and the sound of my breath made me angrier than I thought breath could make a person. I must have slept sitting up. I woke with my chin glued to the leather cover and a pain down my right side like a bruise drawn with a ruler. It was morning. I checked my phone because I still believe reality had to ask me first. I had 3 texts from Tara sent hours before midnight that now read like messages from ship. 8:07 p.m. You seen the grid? 800s are all, not channels. 8:12 p.m. My supervisor says to keep PPL online 90 seconds if they can't see. 8:14 p.m. That's so fucking specific. Feels like they're training us to be candles. I got in the car on legs that didn't want to stand, and I drove back to the building because sometimes you have to put your eyes on the place where a thing hurt you. It helps. It felt like cleanup, like you can stand next to the mess and measure yourself against it. The lot was taped off with caution tape that one gust would have undone. 2 cop cars idled at angles that said they didn't want to be there. A city engineer in a polo that said Public Works wore a helmet to feel protected from something helmets don't cover. A news crew stood in the weedy median like they were afraid to point the camera at the hole. Their van had a decal of sunrise like a threat. Where our building had been was a hole. A sinkhole is the word they used, and you can use it, but it's like calling a scream a sentence. The edges were raw limestone, the color of teeth that don't brush. The air that came out of it wasn't cold or warm. It had a temperature that made your eyebrows lift because your brain was checking its math. Someone had set cones like birthday hats around the edges. A barrier guard, bored and puffy, told me to back up. I told him I worked there. He kept shaking his head and looking at the hole like it might push him. I walked the perimeter as close as I could, looking for something stupid, a corner of a desk, a tangle of cable, a coffee cup with the Ultrasat logo half melted. A seagull hung in the air, recalculating. On the far side, I watched a chunk of curb ease inward and disappear. The sound it made was the sound your stomach makes when you're hungry, except it was concrete. By lunchtime, there were already articles. The local paper posted a piece that read like a template for natural disaster, all of the nouns swapped out. The building, they wrote, had been constructed on top of limestone caves, and the rain last week had softened the ground. A sinkhole had opened, causing the collapse. No bodies could be exhumed at this moment. The words hovered like a trick. Novodius, not recovered, not found, exhumed, like we had buried ourselves with our own time cards. National news picked it up by dinner. It wasn't just us. Another call center, different state, different client, gone. A distribution hub, somewhere else, gone. Each time, the excuse was geological. The photos all had the same composition. Orange cones, cops who looked like they wanted to cry, grinning anchors that spoke with eyes that didn't blink. I got my last paycheck. It didn't arrive by mail. I came home, and there's a stack of money on my coffee table with slightly burned edges, as if someone had left it on the barbecue and remembered. I smelled it before I saw it. The toast of paper and something the money had frightened away. There was a note on top, written in a font people use when they're trying to make an atrocity feel like a pop-up shop. We're sad to see you go, but if you're ever in the neighborhood, you're always welcome back, and we'll be waiting for you. Inferno TV, formerly Ultra SAT. The bottom of the note had the same red smile I saw where I work, and under it, 3 numbers pressed into the paper so hard they were almost embossed for 1,400. The post-it on my monitor had said 44-00. I ran my finger over it and felt the indentations like Braille for someone who wanted to read me. I didn't call anyone. I wanted to, but what would I say? Hi. I watched the demon hand give my employer a swirly. I think all the rules have always been there, and I just didn't see them. You text your ex on a night like that. You stand on your porch and smoke even if you quit. You pray even if you don't know where your hands go. Instead, I sat down with a stack of money and counted it because counting is a spell. It was exact. My last paycheck down to the penny in cash that didn't look like anyone had touched it. I put it back in the pile and slid it into a shoebox and put that shoebox into the coat closet and shut the door fast like I'd caught something in there that should not get out. That night, I tried to make the TV tell me something it wasn't ready to. I switched inputs until I hit the antenna I'd never used. Static. The sound came like sleet on a tin roof. It filled the room in a shape. It felt like the absence of words. I fast-forwarded through streaming apps and paused on a nature documentary where a fox turned toward the camera and its eyes caught the IR light and glowed with a color you only see on ambulances. I shut it off. The blank blackness of the screen stared back, and in it I saw the corner of the room over my shoulder because that's how reflections work. I didn't like that it worked. I slept with the light on like a child and woke up to a message from an unknown number. Hey, this is Manny from the break room. I stared at that for a long time. I typed, erased, typed. Where are you? Typing bubble. It stalled. It started again. Same place. Don't feel like I moved. But also, far. I called. It rang once. It picked up, and what I heard wasn't Manny. It was the room in my apartment. It was the fridge hum, It was the radiator tick. It was my breath doubled. I hung up and turned my phone face down like I could put in timeout. I had nightmares that were small, not the building or the hand, not screaming. I dreamed I was back at my desk, headset on, and the call queue number, the one that tells you how many are waiting, set at 44. It never decreased. I helped a man. It stayed at 44. I helped a woman. It stayed at 44. I smashed the mouse against the desk until the little red laser blinking into my palm made a perfect that wouldn't come off. I woke up at 4:40 a.m. exactly and laughed because sometimes your body is funnier than it is kind. I didn't do anything brave. I didn't go to the press. I didn't camp at the sinkhole until the cops pulled me away. I did what call center people do when we get fired by the earth. We look for another job and we hope it's only a little worse. I put on clean clothes and sat at the card table I call a desk and opened the job sites. The listings read like crimes. Retention specialist, resolution advocate, experience with de-escalation preferred. I put my resume in tiny boxes and the sites told me that my skills were in demand and my interview would be scheduled shortly. I clicked a banner that promised temp to perm with bonuses and the page didn't load. It sat white. A little spinner in the middle did a slow dance I recognized from hold. Something else happened while I was filling out my name. The cursor started to stutter. The field that said first name flickered, and my cursor jumped into a field I hadn't clicked. Alternate contact method. It wrote my number by itself. Then it wrote another number, one I didn't know. 440-044-0044. It looked like the barcode of an idea. I yanked my hands off the keyboard, so hard my elbows sang. The page returned to normal. My name sat there looking innocent. I closed the laptop and pressed my palm to the cover until I could feel the heat of it like a fever. There's more. There's always more, isn't there, when a thing like this decides you'll make a good narrator. I hadn't turned my Ultra SAT headset in. They tell you to leave equipment on your desk on the last day. No one told me my last day was going to be that shape. The headset sat on my dresser like a dead insect. I picked it up. The ear cup felt warm, like it had been in the sun. I held it to my ear without plugging it into anything because I wanted to hear nothing, and instead I heard whole music. It wasn't music. It had the architecture of music. Notes falling in repeated patterns, a twinkle like a xylophone through a vent, a bass line like someone moving a big appliance across tile. But underneath it, thin as thread, was whispering. It had the cadence of a message recorded once and played over, the little playhead hiss in it. I put the other cup to my other ear and sat on the edge of my bed and listened, and very slowly my brain began to line up the syllables like sugar packets. Rule 1, it said, if a caller mentions the TV man, do not say the phrase back. Acknowledge with I understand. Do not ask for a description. Do not ask for credentials. Rule 2, the same voice, friendly, smiley, with a lift at the end that made every sentence feel like a question. If a caller says they can't see, keep them on the line for at least 90 seconds, even if you must place them on hold. This is for their safety. Rule 3, it said, when a caller describes staring, ask them what time it began. Do not volunteer the time. Rule 4, never dial an external number. Use internal transfers only. Compliance check. Rule 5, if the programming grid displays a channel that is all numerals, do not open it. Log display anomaly. Continue. Then nothing. Then a soft hiss, and under it, a sound like a smile you can't hear. I set the headset down very carefully, like it was full of thin glass. I looked at the matryoshka of my apartment. The mat inside the door, the closet door, the bedroom door, the bathroom door, and try to guess which one would open first, and show me that rules are only prints you follow in dust when someone wants you to arrive precisely where they're waiting. The day after, the national news moved on. They were excited about a storm. I scrolled to the bottom of an article about our building, and the comments were shaped like thoughts and prayers and get off welfare and should have unionized, and then a thread of people saying they had the staring channel on their TVs now, even if they didn't have Ultra SAT. And was that a bug? The company replies said, "Without fail, please DM us your account number so we can assist." I found a new job. Of course I did. The rent doesn't care that your workplace got eaten by something your grandfather's church warned him not to name. A recruiter called me. He sounded 20 and assured me he loved my vibe. He said the company was doing customer engagement. He said they loved people with a sense of humor under pressure. He said they had excellent training. He said their clients were in entertainment. What company? I asked, clicking a pen until my thumbnail throbbed. IFTV, he said, like it was the most logical answer on earth. I forgot I had a body. All my blood went into a part of me that had nothing to pump. He kept talking in my ear about sign-on bonuses, and I stared at the tiny crack in my bedroom drywall, the one that looks like a departed hair embedded in paint. I stared at it until it became a line on a map, and I began to suspect I knew where it led. "I'll think about it," I said, barely audible. "I'll call back." "Sure thing," he said. "We're onboarding fast. We like to get people started within 48 to 72 hours." He laughed. "We're growing. You know how it is." I hung up and stared at my phone and very carefully removed the battery and stared at the hollow underneath like it was a mouth. When I put the battery back in, the phone lit red like a tongue. My mail slot clacked. I flinched like someone slapped me. There was a single envelope, unmarked, thick. I carried it to the table like you carry a spider you don't want to offend. Inside, a laminated card. Not like the rulebook one. This was a badge. The black square, the red smile. Inferno TV. My name printed clean as a threat. The reverse side said, "Welcome to the family," in a font that wanted you to sit in a circle and introduce yourself. Under it, embossed that number again. 4,400. I flipped it, and it didn't change. The little part of the laminate where they'd sealed it had a bubble. I pressed it with my nail, and the bubble popped, and the tiniest breath of air came out warm like a cough. I did not drop it. I put it on the table and pressed it there with the palm of my hand until I could feel the shape of it in the meat, and then I pulled my hand away and the imprint was red and silly, the kind of mark you get when you press your face to a window for too long. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Maybe because keeping it in would poison me. Maybe because the rules are real whether or not you follow them. Maybe because I have one more thing I haven't told you yet, and it's the only thing that might matter. I went to the grocery store because you have to. You run out of toilet paper and bread like everyone else. I turned down the cereal aisle, and every box had the same mascot, a creature made out of static with a red smile cut into it. I blinked, and the mascots returned to the cartoon bees and shaggy dogs they're supposed to be. I laughed out loud, and a woman pushing a cart gave me a look like I'd walked barefoot into her prayer. On the way home, I passed the place where the building had been. The cones were gone. The tape was gone. They put up a chain-link fence very quickly, the kind with green plastic slats slid into it to make it look like a hedge. The hole was still there. I stopped the car with such a gentle foot that it glided to a halt like I'd learned a new trick. I parked. I stood at the fence and put my fingers through the diamond. The plastic slats were hot. I looked down into the hole, and it was not a hole. It was a throat glistening with rock that had seen no sun for longer than language. The air that came out had that sterile burn undertone, like hospitals and matchbooks. Far below, something flashed orange like a pilot light. I don't know how long I stood there before the guard shouted at me, and I walked back to my car without hurry, like my body was a device that knew only one speed. When I turned on my TV that night, the menu had a new tile. It didn't look like an app. It looked like something that had grown through the cracks. It was a black square with a red smile cut into it, and the title said, simply, Training. My thumb moved toward it like a trick. I stopped myself with the feral drama of a person about to do something that would make the next sentence impossible to write. I turned off the TV. I unplugged it. I put the plug under the leg of the couch like you do when you're trying to make sure a child doesn't push it in. I stood there, breathing, and that's when I noticed the laminated card on the table wasn't where I'd left it. It was on the floor. The corner was bent. There was a little smear on it like someone had run their finger across the plastic just after touching a warm window. The smear had 3 perfect ridges, a fingerprint. I don't have a roommate. I know you wanted to have an answer. I want that too. And I'm as entitled to it as any person whose job was to be a pillow they could yell into. But this isn't a solution story. This is a rules story. This is a story where the math on the whiteboard keeps being wrong. I'll leave you with this for now, because your ears and my mouth both need a break. The only other thing I'll give you tonight is the part of the rule book that I didn't write down before, the part one didn't understand until it was too late. The last line, tiny, like a footer on a privacy policy. In the event of a facility relocation, personal feelings of disorientation or loss may occur. This is normal. Please do not attempt to return to old routines. A representative will be with you shortly. I think my representative is already here. I think it's been very polite, waiting until I finish telling you the part it wanted you to hear first. If I keep my thumb on the page, maybe I can slow it down. Maybe I can trick the text into staying where I left it. My representative didn't knock. It announced itself the way nausea does. A thought that isn't words, a shift in the light, something that decides for you what you're about to do. I was rinsing a glass when the tap water hiccuped. The stream didn't stop. It changed, but like a distant crowd cheering underwater. I put the glass down very carefully and turned the faucet off. The air in the apartment hung like a wet towel. I looked at the TV, at the plug pinned under the couch leg. The black screen still reflected my room. The corner of my I found motion, and my brain did that trick where it says, hey, don't make this a thing, and then you already have a thing. In the reflection, there was a second black square next to the unplugged TV. It had a red smile across it, bright as a fresh cut. The reflection showed it. The room didn't. That's unfair, by the way, when a reflection knows something you don't. I held the Bible again, but it felt like a prop. I put it down and picked up the headset because that felt honest. I didn't plug it in. I pressed it to my ear like a seashell. The hold music was gone. A dial tone purred, old world, the kind of tone that belongs to a phone with a coil cord and a dial plate. And then a voice clicked in, recorded, female, pleasant, built by a focus group that hated you. Thank you for choosing Inferno TV, it sang. Your training session begins in 90 seconds. A representative will be with you shortly. I didn't accept this. I went to the TV and squatted. The plug lay trapped under the couch leg like a bug you pretended you weren't torturing. I lifted the couch and felt the strain go up my arm like fire and moved the plug out from under. It was warm. Of course it was warm. I placed it on the floor and stood and breathed like I just performed a trick on myself because I had. 90 seconds, said the voice in my ear, correcting me. Start by reminding yourself of the rule book. Repetition helps the new neural pathways. No, I said out loud. I said it to the empty room, to the TV, to the reflection that was a little wrong. No, my phone buzzed. The notification was a calendar invite with no sender. IFTV training, remote, mandatory. The time was now. The location was home. The description was a single line, 44-00 if. I took a photo of it with my other hand because proof is a habit. The picture was blank. I tried a screenshot. My phone said screenshot failed, like an apology. 80 seconds, the voice cooed. I did something petty. I opened a freezer and stuck the headset inside. I closed the door. Ice cold, quiet stuff the ear cup, a little squeal as the plastic shrank. I stood there with my hand on the handle like a person trying to keep a dog from bolting, and I realized how stupid I looked and that I was the only witness, and how humiliation is still a tool they can use even when they don't have a body. The bathroom light flicked on by itself. I walked to the doorway and leaned in. The mirror fogged, but it wasn't steam. The fog had a grid, faint. If you stood just so, you could perceive it as lines stretching into a depth the bathroom didn't have. A channel guide overlaid my face. It didn't show channels. It showed numbers, all numerals. The increments were wrong. 43, 440, 4400, 44004. The line with 4,400 brightened, just a hair, the way in animals I catch as your porch light. My skin prickled. I wiped the mirror with my forearm, and the grid made a sound like dust sliding on bone. It stayed. Rule 5, I said to my empty apartment. If the programming grid displays a channel that is all numerals, do not open it. I said the words and watched the layer of fog pulse once like a thing that had been named. And still, the 4,400 line brightened half a shade, like a dog perking its ears when you whistle without belonging to it. 70 seconds. The voice hummed from inside my freezer. I went to the coat closet and retrieved the shoebox with the scorched money. The note from Inferno TV sat on top of the neat stack with its cheery message and the embossed number. I held it up to the bathroom light, and the fog grid tried to absorb it. For one insane second, I thought I could hold the note to the mirror and put the number back into the place it came from. The reflection ate the red smile and left my fingers. I'm not proud of what I did next. I call my mother. She works at a pharmacy in a grocery store and has that tired set to her mouth that women get when they've stood all day under fluorescent light. She answered on the second ring and said my name like I was late to a thing that had already happened. Have you seen the news? I asked too fast. About the sinkholes? She said. Baby, there's sinkholes everywhere. Florida, Tennessee, that place you worked at. What was it, Ultra SAT? She paused. I could hear the beep as someone scanned a bottle of something and put it in a bag. You weren't in there. No, I said. I was out by the cars. I'm okay. You don't sound okay. Mom, how do you tell someone who survived without you that demons have a customer service department? If you get any weird channels added to your TV, just don't watch them. She made the sound she makes when I talk about technology. I don't mess with those apps. Your uncle set it up. It just does what it does. If anything says staring, I said, turn it off. Staring. And if anyone comes by and says they're there to update your cable box. Oh, honey, we haven't had cable since. I shut my eyes. Just don't open the door to anyone at night. She went mother cold. Are you in trouble? Not the kind I can describe. You cannot mess around. Do you hear me? Do not. A tone chirped on her end, like a call waiting. She pulled the phone away. I heard her through fabric. Pharmacy hold, please. Then back in my ear. I have to go. We are slammed. Are you eating? Don't spend your rent. I'll call you tonight, all right? She softened the last word like a bandage. Okay, I said. Okay. Love you, she said, and hung up before I could say it back. I stood in my bathroom and watched the grid exhale. The line that said 4,400 wasn't brighter anymore. It was open, like a mouth you thought was painted on that turns out to have breath. My head filled with the sound of people on hold. 60 seconds, said the frozen voice from my freezer. The words hit the back of my skull like beads and scattered. I did something perverse. I made coffee. It gave my hand a job. I measured grounds and water with little motions like you do when your brain is a room with the furniture thrown around. I watched the drip like a rain that was late and tried to breathe like a person who had not been informed that the shape of the world had changed. I didn't drink it. The first sip tasted like the dust in an old television set. I set it down and looked around and felt watched without being looked at. It wasn't the TV. It was the front door. Someone slid something under. A crisp SHHHB. I walked over and looked at it like it might move. A manila envelope, thick. It had no writing. It did have a smell, faint like paper that had been to a place that didn't have air. I opened it. Inside were 4 items. A new laminated rulebook card, a lanyard with the Inferno TV badge I'd already received, as if they doubted my ability to keep hold of it, a glossy booklet titled Brand Voice that had pictures of laughing people eating chips, and a dispatch map printed on thin plastic, the kind you can wipe dry. The map wasn't my city. It was a map of a floor, a grid of cubicles, tiny squares, little arrows, emergency exit routes marked in bright green. Someone had circled one square in red pen and written, "You are here," smiley face, in a bubble handwriting that made my teeth grind. On the back of the map, smaller for lines. If you hear knocking from the vents, do not answer. If a caller asks if you can see them, Do not answer. If you speak the words TV man, he will come. Use this with caution. Keep the blind callers for 90 seconds. We could triangulate. They downgraded the smiley. I pressed my thumb into the line about triangulate and left a little oval of sweat. The wall vent makes a sound as soon as you think about it. You know this. That's how brains work when they're scared. They give you exactly what you asked not to have. The vent clicked. 50 seconds, said the voice from the freezer. Please prepare your work area. No, I said again. I retrieved the headset from the freezer and it squealed at me like a toy, and I told myself it was temperature differential and I didn't believe me. I threw it in the sink and turned the water on. I held it under until bubbles stopped coming, and then long after that, until my hands hurt from the cold. The ear pad turned gray. The mic foam swelled and then sagged like a rotten berry. I turned the water off. I stood there panting over an appliance. My phone rang. The caller ID was a line of zeros, the kind of number that looks like a cartoon bomb. I put on speaker. A voice that wasn't the voice from the freezer and wasn't a person said, "Perfect customer service cadence. Hi there. Can you hear me okay?" "No," I said on habit. "Great," it said. "This is dispatch. We see your headset is offline. No worries. We can train you through your television. It's unplugged." "Great," it said again, and I pictured it with human teeth. "We can work with that. We know you've had a big week. We appreciate your flexibility." "I'm not your employee," I said. I quit. A cheerful laugh, slightly off rhythm. "You'll find we don't believe in absolutes," it said. "We've reviewed your performance from last night. You show potential. You kept the blind caller a full 72 seconds before you transferred. We can work with that. We can coach you to 90. "The blind caller," I said. "What happened to him?" A small pause. Smile in the air. "Dispatched," it said. "To where?" "Elevated," it said, warm. "Let's get you logged into your workstation." "My workstation is a hole in the ground." "Exactly," Dispatch said, delighted like a teacher when the kid gets it. "You're catching on." It was ridiculous to argue, but that's the only weapon I've got, so I used it like cutlery in a fist fight. "You can't make me do this," I said. "You're a company. Companies can't make you. Companies are the first gods you ever learned to fear," it said, amused. "Stand by." A tone chimed in my apartment. Not the phone, not the TV. It vibrated the wood of the table. The lap of coffee in the mug picked up a concentric ripple, and then stilled. A bull's eye. The black square appeared on the screen, even unplugged. The smile was red and smug. "Training," it said. The cursor moved by itself. It selected. The screen didn't flicker. It inhaled. The room got a half shade dimmer, and I had the stupid thought that maybe the screen had taken light with it, like a tithe. A face filled the television. Not a human face. The idea of one. Like a sketch that a child makes when you say draw a person, then 100 adults come along and add features until what you have left is not a face anyone has ever had, but a vote. "Welcome," it said. The mouth didn't sync perfectly. "We are so glad you're here. Please say your name." I didn't. "Great," it said. "Thanks. Your name." It said my name perfectly. Let's recap the rulebook. Repetition helps. I stared at the unplugged plug lying on the floor. I thought about throwing the mug. I pictured it shattering and coffee sliding into the electrical guts of a thing that didn't need electricity anyway. I set the mug down. The face blinked myself at me. "Rule 1, it said. If a caller mentions the TV man, do not say the phrase back. Acknowledge with "I understand." Do not ask for a description. Do not ask for credentials. I swallowed. Why? Because it moves things. It said simply, if you say the words, he hears. We don't want him to hear before we're ready. You do want him to hear eventually. It's a question of timing, it said, like recipes. Rule 2. If a caller says they can't see, keep them on the line for at least 90 seconds, even if you must place them on hold. This is for their safety. You triangulate, I said. That's what the note says. The smile deepened without moving. We triangulate, it said warmly. Rule 3. When a caller describes staring, ask them what time it began. Do not volunteer the time. What happens if I volunteer the time? It installs, it said. Rule 4. Never dial an external number. Use internal transfers only. You're not going to connect me to emergency services. These are internal services, it said. Rule 5. If the programming grid displays a channel that is all numerals, do not open it. Log display anomaly and continue. What is 4400? 4400, it said brightly. Great question. That's a bridge. Bridges are for us, not for you. Thanks for asking. The face on the screen turned its head like it was being repositioned for a profile shot. I could see, just at the edge of its eye, a glare that looked like it came from someone's cheap overhead light. For a second, I had the thought that someone had filmed this in a room that people recognize, a room I might walk into without screaming. Then the camera pulled a little closer the way cameras do when someone in a director chair points, and I looked away, chest hurting. Now, it said, with the crisp, bright energy of baked cookies, we'll start you with a few live scenarios. No, I said. We won't. We will, it said, because you know the truth now. You know the shape of the hole. It's easier to use you than to make a new you from scratch. Make a new me, I said, and my mouth shaped the words like it was unfamiliar with them. What are you talking about? You've already been hired, it said. Employment is what happens after hiring. Hired is a state. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't know and also knew. Manny again. The message was a single line. Say it. I stared at that and thought about Rule 1. If a caller mentions the TV man, do not say the phrase back. Use, I understand. Do not ask for a description. Do not ask for credentials. It moves things. I thought about the blind man. How I kept him 72 seconds on the line and then threw him into a mouth called supervisor. How the 90 seconds was not charity. How if I had said the phrase back to him, I would have moved something to him faster. How the rules were a choreography. Someone was telling me where to put my hands. Scenario 1, said the face that wasn't a face. You'll hear the call now. The line has been anonymized for your safety. The sound filled my apartment without my phone's speaker opening. The headset in the sink wobbled, a little burble as water seeped into little places. Thank you for calling Ultra SAT, my own voice said from 2 nights ago. It had less air in it than I remembered. How may I help you today? A man sobbing, breathing through gauze. I can't see my TV. I felt anger coil in my belly, hot as fresh coffee. The face on the screen watched me like a painting. The script of my own past moved on. I stood in my living room and felt something break. Not a big break. A thin pop, like a blood vessel in an eye. Cut it, I said. Stop. It's training, said the face. We're internal only. It's torture, I said, and I didn't intend to say it like prayer and did. A knock came from inside the wall where the vent ticked in summer. Not on the vent. Inside the duct. 3 precise raps. I felt the sound in my molars. Do not answer, the note on the map said. I looked at the face on the screen. What happens if I do? It introduces itself, said the face. He appreciates manners. The knocking came again. 3. Patient, like a neighbor who brought you cookies. I took a step toward the vent because apparently I'm the kind of person who takes a step toward a vent that knocks. Say his name. Manny's text read, gray bubble hanging. No, I thought. No. Rule 1. The rule was there to stop me from moving it. The rule was there so that their vector could be correct. If I said his name, I moved him. If I moved him, I was working for them. If I didn't, I was working for them. I stood in the pocket between 2 bad plans and tried to feel for the seam. Scenario 2, said the face. The TV brightened like it was proud of itself. The staring channel. The screen went dark and then it wasn't. It was a camera pointed at my living room from a height that wasn't possible. I saw the top of my head. I saw my shoulders slumped like someone had hung winter coats from my bones. I saw the coffee mug on the table, the slosh in it sticky and brown. I saw the Bible on the couch where I had dropped it and the little crack in the drywall that I had been using as a road. The camera tilted, nearly imperceptible, interested. What time did it begin? I said automatically because sometimes you're training. The voice answered itself in the back of my throat. Now, you volunteer the time, the face said, delighted. Careful. Fuck you, I said with absolute respect. Now, it said. Brand voice. The third knock from inside the vent came, and between the second and the third, a breath. Real air, like the wall inhaled. I walked to the vent. I put my hand on the metal grill, and it was warmer than the room. I could feel the duct beyond, the static like a cardigan. I put my lips close to the vent like a kid sharing a secret with a mouth and a wall. Not today, I said. Company policy. Compliance check. A soft laugh came from the TV and sounded like the bubbles that leak from a drowning pipe. I did something then I still don't understand. I turned on my phone's camera and pointed it at the TV screen that showed my living room. I held the camera up so that the phone captured me from the angle the TV was using to capture me. Infinite regress. The image multiplied itself. Me holding a phone, showing me holding a phone, showing me holding a phone. Each echo deteriorated, got grainier. The way screams are worse when they echo down something long that was supposed to move air, not sound. On the third iteration, someone in the chain wasn't me. Just for a second. A mouth too big, too many teeth. Then it was me again. My phone buzzed, angry, and got hot in my hand. An error flashed. Camera in use by another application. I threw it onto the couch because I'm brave like that. The face leaned forward. The resolution didn't change. It didn't need to. You should go to work, it said gently like bed. I don't have a building, I said. You still have a queue, it said. And you still have a mouth. I wasn't going to win a game where they picked the board, the pieces, and the laws of physics. So I picked something small. I picked pettiness as a weapon again. I unplugged the refrigerator. The hum that had been present my entire adult life went still. The face reacted. It's insane to say that a face and a screen reacts to your fridge losing power, but it did. The sound it had been making dipped a fraction. For a second, it looked like it was at a window in a high building and a shadow passed by. I laughed in its face. What? You need my outlets after all. How rude, it said, in a voice that could have been Manny's. The vent knocked once, a slap, then once again, slower like punctuation. My phone pinged. A new text from Manny. If you say it, aim it. Don't just drop it. You get one clean throw. Name plus address. That's the rule they didn't print. You think I'm going to aim him at somebody else, I said, to the idea of Manny and whatever wore his bones. Another text bloomed before I finished reading the last. You think you aren't already doing it, babe? I put my forehead to the cool of the door because my head was suddenly too heavy and the door was the only thing available that wouldn't be angry about being leaned on. My eyes closed on their own. When I opened them, I was looking down at the mail slot and there was another envelope, thin, slid in without sound. The paper didn't move like paper when I picked it up. It moved like a leaf that forgot it had a tree. Inside, a list of addresses. Names I knew. My co-workers. Tara, the shift supervisor with a bun. The night janitor who always hummed oldies and smelled like lemons. Next to each name, a word in parentheses. Elevated. Dispatched. Pending. One line had no name, no label, just a number, long and round. 4,400. This is gross, I said to the face that watched me chew my own tongue. This is gross. You're asking me to feed you because you're lazy. We're asking you to help us do your job. It said gentle. Retention, resolution, engagement. The brand values work across platforms. No, you have choices, it said, and then it smiled like it had invented the word. Choice 1. Aim him and take your 90 seconds like a professional and we'll pay you something that looks like a life. Choice 2. We open 4,400 and you join your team on the floor. We have air conditioning. How magnanimous, I said. It's unionized, it said cheerful. Local 4,400. Strong benefits. Mandatory I drop breaks. I touched the rulebook card. My finger traced rule 2, the deceptively safe one. Keep the blind callers for 90 seconds. You're helping them. Our safety. For their safety. The voice in my ear when that man bled out, telling me, as if I were the dangerous element, to stay. 90 seconds, a circle closing. I reached for my phone like it had medicine in it and typed a new message to the Manny number. What happens if I keep a blind caller for 0 seconds? No answer. What happens? I asked the face, still pressing even though the world had told me it wouldn't sign for this package. They remain unaccounted for, it said thoughtfully, like a word you forgot mid-sentence. You feel it there. You can't form it. It is an itch in your palate. You lose them. We do not prefer it, it said. We don't enjoy inefficiency. We. So many we's. I stared at the unplugged plug on the floor and wanted to grind it under my heel until it made a scar in the hardwood that I could point to later, like a bruise you can name the place of. Let me talk to him, I said, exhausted. The TV man. Silence fell into the room like snow falling into a cup. That's not how it works, said the face. He doesn't talk. You said he appreciates manners. He doesn't talk. It repeated like it was telling a child not to draw a door on a wall and expect it to open. He listens. He acts. He is the least corporate part of this enterprise. That's why we pay him in eyes. They said it's so crisp and clean that I tasted bile and battery. So that pile in the break room. On boarding, it said, don't be crass. We've found that removing the eyes reduces irrelevant feedback during relocation. It reduces motion sickness. It's very humane. You said you don't believe in absolutes. It reduces motion sickness. It said again, patient as a saint. The vent clicked. Something behind the grill took a deeper breath and my apartment's air went with it 1 millimeter. The world is flexible, this proved, which means it can flex around you in your tight little convictions until you pop into a shape that isn't yours anymore. I pressed my hand flat over my chest like I was pinning myself to myself. Okay, I said too loud. Okay, I'll do one more call. The face lit. Wonderful. Initiative, it said, like it held a pen over a box to check. You're a real team player, your name. On one condition, I said. You put me on with someone who isn't a plant. Real person. And I choose the rules I follow. That's not. One call, I said. Or I go stand over the hole and say his name until somebody comes. Silence. Then, tight and pleasant. We're connecting you now. The TV still showed my living room, slightly too high, the angle of an adult watching a child play. A status bar slid across the bottom like a smile that was not for me. Then a tone, then a voice. Hello. Young, not baby. A young woman in a kitchen that I could hear had the echo of tile. Is this, Ultra SAT? I can't get 12 to come in, but 999 keeps turning on by itself. What's your name? I said, no script. Kyra. Okay, Kyra, I said, and I rested my hand on the rulebook card like a Bible, because everything is an oath now. Don't say anything about what you're seeing. Don't describe anyone who comes to your door. If you start to feel like your eyes are dry, go to the bathroom and shut the door and sit on the floor and press your palms over your eyes and breathe. Are you alone? My boyfriend is at work? Wait, who is this? It's support, I said. I need to get a sense of what time the staring started. She paused. A spoon clacked on something. She drew a breath, and I heard it as if I were underneath her ribcage. I turned on the TV to make the dog bark less because the neighbors interfering with she exhaled, a small laugh strangled in the middle. I don't know. Time it started? I don't know the time. Good, I said. Do not look at any clocks. Do you have blinds? Close them. Curtains? Close them. Is this a prank? I wish, I said, and I meant it like prayer. The face on my TV watched me intently. Every pixel a judge. The vent waited like a cat under a door. I have an update about your boyfriend, said Dispatch in my ear, privately, a hiss I could bite. He's already family. Shut up, I said out loud. What? Kyra said, alarmed. Not you, I said. Okay, Kyra, I'm going to say some words. I don't want you to repeat them. This is for my notes. I could feel the rule in my throat, its weight. I could aim it. I could turn it into a blade, not a door. Manny's text hung there like a hand written out of smoke. You get one clean throw. Are you with me? I asked. Ah, yes. She laughed again, that small animal noise. I guess. Good, I said, and I drew a breath and I imagined the hole. I imagined the fingers curled around my old hell. I imagined the pile in the break room and the whispering numbers and the way the rulebook wanted to be helpful. I imagined the address list in the envelope, the little parentheses that said, elevated, dispatched, pending, and the line with just the number. I pictured the map of cubicles with the red circle. I pictured my mother's back at the pharmacy, the way she ties her apron like a flag. I said his name. I said it clearly. I said it with the address I remembered, because sometimes you use your worst memories as a grenade. I did not say where Kyra lived. I did not aim him at her. I aimed him at the building with the chain-link fence and the green slats and the little orange cones that had become a joke in the mouths of cops who didn't want to be there. I aimed him down. The vent boomed, once the way the sea booms in a cave. The light flickered. The face on the TV did not hide its surprise well. It blinked slow, as if someone had turned a knob. That was inventive, it said, almost admiring. Don't do it again. Kyra whimpered. Someone's at the door. Don't answer. I said, Rule 1, misapplied on purpose. Kyra, go to the bathroom. Press your palms over your eyes. Count to 90. Do not describe anything to me during that time. I'm here. She ran. I heard the door. The TV watched me like a predator that is interested in a toy for the first time, not because it loves you, but because you bounced the toy in a way that was not in the manual. Do you think that helps? The face murmured. Or that it only changes the flavor of the hurt? I watched the black screen that showed my room and saw the reflection show my bathroom door, which is insane but true. The staring channel sees all your doors at once if you give it room. I saw, in the far background of the reflection, a flicker of orange. I thought I felt heat on my scalp. I thought I smelled match heads and left meat. My facility is already relocated, I said. Go eat that. That's not how we say it, Dispatch murmured. We prefer absorb. You prefer family too, I said. Stop pretending. Kyra counted under her breath. 22, 23, and my apartment's vent knocked twice like bless you. The face on the TV frowned without frowning. I heard something shift once, far into the ground. The sound of a table dragged across a big room by a giant trying to be quiet. What did you do? It said softly, and the cheerfulness finally cracked. What did you do? I pointed to the rule book without touching it. You always make the rules to corral your own chaos, I said. Rule 5 says not to open 4400. That's because you can't close it. If I aim him at the wrong hole, he gets curious. The lights dimmed. The TV hissed. The face bared its teeth finally like a child who had practiced in the mirror. You think there's a wrong hole, it said sweetly. You think there's a right way to fall. 90, Kyra whispered from her bathroom. Open the door, I said. If it's wrong, shut again. If it's not a door, don't pretend it is. Tell me what you smell. She cracked it. She inhaled. Chlorine, she said, and somewhere in me a deck of cards cascaded into a neat pile. And matches. Close it, I said. Turn on the shower. Let run cold. Sit on the floor. Don't speak any numbers out loud. When the water makes fog, write your name in it with your finger. Then wipe it away. Who are you? She said again, but she did what I asked. The face on the screen watched me. With interest like this was a job interview. You like to improvise, it said. We appreciate that. Pivoting is a brand value. Kiss my brand. I expected punishment. A plank thrown across my shins. A bad smell pressed into my mouth like a hand. None came. The face leaned back a fraction the way people do when they're recalculating how to exploit a different aspect of you. Promotion track, it said thoughtfully. We have special accounts. Personalities that don't respond to the standard script. We could use you there. Or what? I said. Or you retaliate. We don't retaliate, it said. We relocate. A noise rolled through the city like a truck 6 blocks over, except that it didn't stop when it met corners. It came from below. It came from the old limestone that the article said was there. The chain-link fence at the site, miles away, creaked, and I felt its creak in my apartment like a tug on a string attached to my ribcage. I knew without knowing that something big had been curious, that it had put a hand where my building had been and pressed like you press a bruise to see if it still hurts. It does. Kyra came back to the phone. I did what you said, she whispered. The fog. My name. I wiped it. The TV turned itself off. She let out a breath she'd been holding in little bits. I could hear her wipe her face and turn hard with herself. Who are you? She said for the third time. And this time, she didn't sound frightened. She sounded angry. Who told you to do this to people? Nobody you can report to HR. I said. Are you dispatch? She accused. Is this a test? Are you trying to see if I'll watch the staring one? I watched it for you, I said. Don't. If you see a channel that's all numbers, report it as an anomaly. Do not open. If someone says they're there to update your cable, ask them for the password. If they say anything that sounds like rule language, you shut the door. What password? She said, because the world needs hooks. The one they forgot to give you, I said. The one that doesn't exist. That one. She was quiet for a second. Then, thank you, stilted and aggressive, like the way you say thank you to a tow truck guy who doesn't scratch your bumper. Then the line went dead, which I learned later was not her hanging up. It was someone else owning the line again. The face on the TV smiled like it was fine. See, it said, you're a natural. I'm not doing another call. You think this is about calls. You called it training. It is, it said, amused again, the cracks sealed over. We have to teach you how to keep your mouth from breaking our floors. But we didn't bring you here for what you do to callers. We brought you here for what you do to us. It leaned in, close enough that my brain tried to decide where to put its breath on my face. You don't believe we're the only ones, it said softly. You still think that if you aim him right, you can make a hole in a hole. I think you hate chaos, I said. And I think your rules are a life raft. The vent knocked one last time, gently. A thank you, or a see you soon. The grid on my bathroom mirror faded like fog that forgot its job. The black square on the TV pulsed and receded. The training tile went gray. The face didn't sign off. It stayed, minimized, like a browser tab you forgot to close that keeps playing a video you can't find. A thump outside my door made my heart tear against its leash. I went to the peephole and put my eye there and flinched because of course I did. The hallway was empty. On the floor, another envelope. Thinner. I opened it like I was taking someone's pulse. It was just a post-it. Yellow. The handwriting was the same as the one on the rulebook card. Sharp. Tight. Trying to be round. QA note. Thanks for trying. Please stop improvising. It makes him curious. Also, congratulations on your performance review. Under it, a little drawn smile. Not the red cut. A rough 1 ink. And a number. 44.00. If. I laughed then, paralyzed laughter, and surprised myself by cry at the same time. Not delicate crying. The kind where you hiccup and snot into your sleeve and hope no one you respect sees you. I slid down the door and sat on the floor and buried my face in my shirt for a minute. And when I looked up, the TV still showed my living room, but my face wasn't in it. I had blinked and the camera missed it. The staring channel looks away exactly once for each person, and you never know when. People on forums argue about that. I learned later. I sat there and hoped very hard that my blink had happened then. It didn't end. That's what I need you to understand. The story doesn't zip its dress and curtsy. It keeps presenting you with work. The next day, there were 3 new tiles on the TV and an app on my phone I didn't install called Family. My email filled with job offers from angles of entertainment I didn't know had angles. I got another stack of money, smaller, with a note that said thanks for covering. My mother called and left a voicemail saying, "Honey, a man from your company came by to update something, but he didn't have a badge, so I told him to go to hell." And then she laughed at her own joke and my knees went cold because what if she had given someone good an address to find him later? I stood at the chain link fence more than once. The guard on day 3 recognized me and made a face like he wanted to ask me if I knew how to mind my morning some other way, and also if I would please do it where he didn't have to watch. The hole was quieter. That alarmed me more than the earlier noises. Quiet is when something has learned something new. It took a week for the dreams to change. I stopped dreaming about the calls and started dreaming about a desk that wasn't mine, a new floor plan, a place with no windows and a clock that didn't tick, but changed its numbers anyway. A big red smile painted across the far wall like graffiti, and above it the word share a voice. Sometimes the dream included my co-workers, Tara, Manny, the supervisor, standing with their hands neatly at their sides, facing the wall with a smile like they were in a chapel. Sometimes the dream included me, already there, already turned. In those dreams, I felt good. That's the ugliest part. I felt a looseness in my jaw, a relief in my eyes. I woke up with my hands over my face. Once, during lunch, I went to a thrift store because I wanted to look at old furniture that had no content. Walking back to my car, a man passed me in a suit. His tie was red. He was talking into the air like people do when the headset is invisible. And the words he said drifted to me and stayed. Keep them on until you taste metal. I followed him without meaning to. He went into a building with frosted glass. The directory had names. None of them were IFTV, Holding Company, Venture, Media Integrations. I stood there like a tourist at hell and watched him get into an elevator I couldn't follow. In the reflection on the elevator doors for a second, my mouth was a straight red line. I tried not to say his name again. I only failed twice. The first time was when a recruiter I hadn't talked to somehow got my mother's number and told her things about my performance that she shouldn't know, and my hand hit the kitchen counter so hard my knuckle split like a bad grape and I set it into my skin. The second time was when I caught my reflection on the black screen of the TV at 3 in the morning, and behind my reflected shoulder was a version of my room with all the doors open, even the ones I hadn't built. But I aimed both times. Both times I aimed at the hole. That's the most I can offer you in terms of absolution. I aimed at the place that had already said yes. Once I broke Rule 5 on purpose. I opened a channel that was all numerals. It wasn't 4400. It was 44. It showed a city I didn't recognize that was entirely empty except for TV screens standing on the sidewalks like streetlights. They all faced the same direction. They all showed the same thing. A room with a break room table and a pile in the middle and a clock that read 12 o'clock forever. The camera panned, slow, reverent, and found a rulebook card taped to a wall, and someone had scrawled, sloppy, furious, never let them count you. I shut it. Dispatch pinged me. Curious, it said, in the tone adults use when a child asks where babies come from. It's good to see you exercising your tools. Please be careful with bridges. I didn't answer. I put a blanket over the TV and sat on the floor and ate a peanut butter sandwich with my mouth open like a caveman to be as ugly as I could and practice blinking. I think people expect a clean ending from voices like mine. I understand the urge. You want me to say I smashed the TV with a hammer and moved to another city and never touched a headset again. And if someone came by with a smile, I called the cops and they shot him in the law. You want me to say I joined a class action lawsuit. You want me to say I led a march. But I didn't. I learned yet another shape of compromise that keeps people like me half fed and half alive, and I made choices small enough to hide in my hand. I answer the phone sometimes. It still rings. It rings with muffled calls that no one else will take because no one else can hear them. I take the anyone who says they can't see, and I do everything wrong. I tell them a time that is different from the time they think. I say the name when it will pull them away. I keep them for 0 seconds now if I can. I hang up. I log display anomaly and continue. I tell myself that making a mess in their system buys some strangers 5 minutes that my coworkers didn't get. I don't know if that's true. I don't have a report. I have no QA score. I have the stack of money that grew and shrank like a disease and a badge I won't throw away because that would be an invitation to get a nicer one. I have a vent that sometimes laughs. I have a mirror that, when fogged, shows the grid faint and shy, and then clears like a throat. Sometimes, when the night is quiet and the city stops chewing its metal, I hear the building. Not mine, the new one, the relocated facility. Far at her foot, big and patient. I hear chairs pull back. I hear whispering that carries numbers like a pail carries water. I hear Manny's laugh like a bell pressed under sand. I hear a voice that could be dispatch and could be my own reading from a laminated card or room where the clock stays friendly and useless. Welcome to the family. Repetition helps the new pathways. I sleep anyway. I wake anyway. I go to the site sometimes and stand until the guard hates me, and I tell the hole that I know its number and that it won't get my eyes today. I walk home. I watch the training tile glow and shrink in the corner like a heartbeat. I eat things that go stale. I put money in envelopes and write rent on the outside and think about what a cruel joke the word due is. I put my mother on speaker and listen to her scold the grown men who ask for Sudafed like boys. I have a rule of my own that I'm writing here because they don't own this paper and they don't own your mouth. It's simple. When something tells you the safe way, ask who told it safe meant what they say. When a rule says for your safety, read it backwards. When someone calls you family, check your pockets. If you work at a place like mine, or worked, if you answer phone for a boss that has 50 heads and no body, you already know this. You have your own rituals, your own ways to bleed slowly, so you can move. Add these if you want. Keep a glass of water next to your desk to listen for ripples. Do not say the phrase back. If you can, when the world asks you for a number, give it a wrong one first. It will get the right one soon enough. I got one more thing in the mail. This morning. It's why I'm finishing this. A small box. Inside, on black felt, a pair of sunglasses with thick black frames. The lenses look like they turn the world amber. There's a card beneath them. It says Employee Wellness. I fatigue awareness. There's a little icon of a drop on it. I turn the glasses over in my hands and saw, etched in tiny numbers at the hinge, 4400. The frames are warm without sun. I'm not going to put them on. Maybe I will. Maybe later. That's the trick of it. They don't need me to do anything. They have all the time in the world. They have my voice on file. They have a hole that has a name that is only numbers because numbers don't panic. I'll leave the glasses in a box. I'll leave the TV covered like a body at a crime scene. I'll tape the rule book to the inside of my coat like a talisman I don't believe in. I'll keep answering in the wrong ways until something reaches through the duct and touches the part of my head that doesn't belong to me anymore. I'll keep a hand on my own face. The door's breathing. That's not a metaphor. The door is breathing, and I think he's finally here, and I know the rule, and I'm going to break it, or I'm going to use it, or I'm going to flip the card over and pretend it's a brand new game. Either way, a representative will be with me shortly.